British Prime Minister Theresa May apologized Tuesday for her government's treatment of some Caribbean immigrants to the United Kingdom and insisted they were still welcomed in the country.
I particularly want to acknowledge that as we come together and celebrate the Commonwealth and the ties between us and the connections between us at Chatham. And particularly the Windrush generation helped to build the country that we are today. And I want to dispel any impression that my government is in some sense clamping down on Commonwealth citizens, particularly those in the Caribbean who built a life here. I take this issue very seriously. The Home Secretary apologised to the House of Commons yesterday for any anxiety caused, and I want to apologise.
She was speaking at a meeting with Caribbean leaders on Tuesday. Ms. May also issued an assurance to the Caribbean leaders saying, quote, "We would also like to reassure you that there will be no removals or detention as part of any assistance to help these citizens get their proper documentation in place," end quote. The apology comes amid widespread condemnation of the government's treatment of the so-called Windrush generation, the first large group of Caribbean migrants to arrive in the UK after World War II. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has accepted the apology by the British Prime Minister. According to The Guardian, Mr. Holness stated that he believes the right thing is being done at this time. Meanwhile, despite an apology from the Home Secretary in the United Kingdom, Amber Rudd, for the treatment of the Windrush generation, saying it was wrong and appalling that some face deportation, pressure is mounting on her for more answers.
When my parents and their generation arrived in this country under the Nationality Act of 1948, they arrived here as British citizens. It is inhumane and cruel. Can she explain how many have been deported? She suggested earlier that she would ask the High Commissioners. It is her department that has deported them. She should know the number. Can she tell the House how many have been detained as prisoners in their own country? Can she tell the House how many have been denied health under the National Health Service? How many have denied pensions? How many have lost their job? This is a day of national shame, and it has come about because of a hostile environment policy that was begun under her Prime Minister.
However, in response, the Home Secretary also expressed concerns.
Concerned that the Home Office has become too concerned with policy and strategy and sometimes lose sight of the individual. And this is about individuals. And we have seen the individual stories. And they have been, some of them, terrible to hear.
On Monday, the Home Secretary announced that a new task force has been established to help those affected and promised to waive fees for new documents needed to prove their status and stay in the UK. And still on the issue, UK Labour MP Afzal Khan says if the UK has done any deportation of members from the Windrush generation, the government should make every effort to get them back in the country.
These were people who were UK and colony citizens that we have deported, and they have contributed to Texas here, improving things here. Of course they need to be brought back, and we have to make sure they get compensations, and we need to make sure that this whole thing stops. Those who are in the detention, they need to be released as well, and we need to make sure that this sort of mistakes doesn't happen, right? And we have rules which prevents this happening, because in 2014 the government actually removed this protection, so they need to bring statutory instrument now to bring back this protection.
And on to other news now. Scores of residents took to the streets on Monday morning to protest the deplorable state of the main roads which lead to their communities in Sligoville, St. Catherine. The residents are from the communities of Simon and Bamboo, as TVJ's O'Shane Masters now reports.
The protest started along the Simon Main Road, which was blocked by downed trees and large boulders. This prevented access to vehicular traffic, while pedestrians were forced to climb over the debris. The residents are blaming China Harbour Engineering Company check for the poor state of the road.
The road was in good condition before China Harbour came and Tankwell came and dig up the road, and they left us with nothing.
If you even try to drive a car on it, you're in a problem. Bypass every single day, not even week. Daily you go bypass.
Another resident told TVJ News that meetings have been held with the various communities and promises made but no fulfillment.
They have promised that Tankwell, along with Chinese Harbour, will both come together to fix the road. Now the MP, which should be Natalie Headley-Nita, have come to some of those meetings and have promised that the road will be fixed at the end of their toll road fixing. Now over here the toll road has been fixed and been in use. We in the community have been suffering as a result of the damage done to the road.
Meanwhile, the principal of the Salmon Primary and Infant School says the road condition is also having a significant impact on the school population.
It has reduced significantly because parents are fearful, children, so they take the other route. So teachers are also fearful, so very soon we may have nobody from outside coming in.
However, political representatives have pointed to a lack of funding, which has resulted to delays in fixing the road.
We are in sympathy with you. We understand what you go through on a daily basis. We emphasize with you. We understand that it is not easy to traverse. I want to say to the residents, especially about 2% of those persons who traverse that road who are actually members of my division, that I understand what you're going through. It is not for want of representation. We continue to knock on the doors, and we are of the view and of the opinion that pretty soon something will be done. I am hoping this call to action that the residents took upon themselves will bring about some change, some repair, and it will be done quickly.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The government says it is hoping to make a significant dent in the debt owed to the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, in the coming months. That's according to Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie. The Light and Power Company estimates that the government owes in excess of $5 billion, to which the minister had this comment.
That figure is debatable.
However, he says payments have been made and will continue to be
made. We
made
have
to the
paid
JPS.
The JPS within the last 6 weeks $1.5 billion. We're going to be paying them the end of this month another $400 million, and in the preceding month we are going to be paying another $250 million.
The St. Elizabeth police have laid charges against the man who was found unconscious outside a 4-room building in a compound in which the burnt remains of a woman were found on the morning of March 23. 44-year-old Mason Steve Green of a compound was yesterday charged with murder, arson and attempting to pervert the course of justice arising from the incident. Mr. Green, who is in hospital under police guard, is expected to make an appearance in the St. Elizabeth Parish Court tomorrow. The remains of 39-year-old businesswoman Jermaine Lennon, otherwise called Marsha, were found under a burnt-out mattress in the house she shared with Mr. Green. The police theorized that Mr. Green, after killing Miss Lennon, set the house on fire in an attempt to conceal potential evidence of the murder. Last week, an autopsy revealed that she was indeed
pickup in St. James now that the authorities have extended the opening hours for nighttime entertainment. The restrictions were implemented in January when the state of public emergency was launched in the parish. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
When the state of emergency in St. James led to early closing for businesses in January, there was outrage.
Them know who them are look for and them know who do all the wrongs. The club now do nothing wrong.
It's my birthday, so I thought I was going to party later, but it's 12 and we're already ending. So I really would have loved to stay because it was so much fun.
Fast forward to April. The authorities revising the closure times means clubs can now open until 2 a.m. However, we're told the streets of Montego Bay are not what they used to be.
Things can go and they get shot. It's because twice now police not like some, gunman not like some. So I saw you go, they have to have a problem between them and us. So we have to come out, we don't know what can happen with it. Everybody, not even me alone, everybody will sell and people, it's the same way.
Driving through Church, Doom and Barnett streets at 11 in the night, only police, taxi operators and those trying to get home from work were seen. Getting home is a headache as these persons depend heavily on robot taxis. And with the state of emergency in effect, robot taxis are staying put. The drivers are fearful they will get caught. Shortly after 1 in the morning, we journeyed to the hip strip where persons usually go to hold a vibe. Vendors were out on the strip. They weren't allowed to do so months ago.
When the dust drop, I never give up, because I'm not a man who give up. I always try to fight, you see me? So I out here, but I have to hide and do me look at one thing, said we one knock, and when they say I just pull up and gone.
Not me now make things kind of slow.
Inside hangout spots like rehab, persons were out, but nothing compared to before the state of emergency. So too for the Moods nightclub, which looked like this in January. But by 2 a.m., the security forces came to ensure the early closure time is enforced. Chop Chop, who sells jerk chicken, is among vendors left to count the losses.
At them time they start make money. And when the time we have a whole of a chicken for a grill and them something there. You understand me? Post comes to lock down, you have to lock it down, pack up the thing them and go here with it.
So what you do with them chicken here when you carry them home or what?
Sometimes I have to eat them, cook them up with local rice and white rice and sit and pick them eat them. You understand me? Because we can't come back in the street and sell people them. Because come and sell them in the street, it's like disrespect people.
The club owners and business operators are all hoping for things to change quickly. They say if this doesn't happen, businesses might have to be shut down. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
The fatal shooting of a student of Godfrey Stewart High on the weekend has left educators in Westmoreland raising concerns again about crime in the parish. The young man was shot at home, but as we hear in this report, this is just the latest of a series of similar killings.
8 young males murdered in as many weeks in Westmoreland. The situation is not only unbearable for relatives, but also for teachers and students. The latest tragedy, the shooting death of 18-year-old Stephen Beckford, otherwise called Rico, a student of the Godfrey Stewart High School, happened shortly after 8 o'clock Saturday evening. Police reports said that Stephen and his mother were at home when gunmen kicked in the door and shot them both. Stephen died where he was shot, while his mother was taken to hospital where she remains in serious condition. For Milton Miles, the former councillor for the Savannah Lamar division, this latest murder is the last straw.
When I reflect on what is happening, I think we have lost about 8 youngsters who have not been buried yet, young men who have not been buried yet. And I ask the question, how many more will be killed before we can have a just and peaceful society?
Those who knew Stephen say he was a promising young man, participating in several school clubs and programs. On Monday, guidance counselors from Godfrey Stewart High, other schools in the parish, as well as from the Education Ministry, converged on the school to give support to grieving students.
He was a helpful one, and he is very jovial and thing. He always see me on the corridor and like he's like, well, go on my market friend. And sir, I didn't know that this was the last I'm going to see Rico.
Stefan is a student who he has a lot of manners. He is respected by all members of staff because of his demeanor and the way he carries himself.
Stefan was an integral member of the institution. He wasn't just a footballer or a student, but if you talk to anybody from the canteen or any of the cleaners, you'll hear the same thing. This is a young man who everybody knows, who everybody loves, who will go out of his way to be helpful to everyone.
Just a few weeks earlier, Stefan's brother was also shot and killed. He is yet to be buried. In light of all the young men murdered since the start of the year, there are renewed cries for something to be done urgently.
Our young men are dying, young, promising men who, have a lot to contribute to Jamaica. I am saddened, really saddened by this experience.
Herman Green, TVJ News.
Still ahead tonight, still waiting. The plight of Douglas Castle resident. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell tells us their concerns.
Flashback to May 2017. Boat operators in Douglas Castle St. Anne busy making the rounds in a temporary lake created by days of heavy rains. They were helping residents marooned by the waters. Where I am standing, I would have been covered under water last year May when the entire area was flooded here in Douglas Castle St. Anne. The water went as high as 10 feet. Government ministries and agencies visited promising help. But almost a year later, the residents still worry.
I know say, this me again. Also when the rain start fall again, the same problem I go have.
The problem was this sinkhole. It is believed the flooding was caused because it was blocked with garbage. It is still blocked today, and with the 2018 hurricane season looming, the residents want it cleared.
Central government have the resources to do it and they're not doing anything. And last year a lot of people come around and now, otherwise from that, nothing.
The residents say they have been abandoned by representatives. It is a claim that has been refuted by the Member of Parliament.
From my end, I will be re-engaging the Minister of Local Government and the Parish Council to see how far advanced we are in not just the cause, but the preventative measures that we can put in place. I know that from my end, we will be having a drain cleaning program in very, very, very short order, whereby we will make the waterways clear so that any possible gathering of water can have a runoff point.
That aside, the residents made this request.
If we see this at this time and there's no movement, if it's even boat again, proper boat.
If one boat come, we have to wait. I remember, so we have all kind of things to do for cross, like the load same time, and you go look like food stuff and stuff like that. But we need some other help. So you understand like that for like some design can make towards whether a bridge or some other stuff like that.
Last year, the flooding caught the residents by surprise. They now prepare for the eventuality.
I supply in Ocherias, and right now I don't know what to do, because in case the rain fall, what I have to do is get my vehicle across. That whatever way I can get the load across to go and deliver, that's what I have to do. Even on my head, or even walk on the top of the hill.
For now, they wait to see what will happen. Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
An early morning fire in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, has left several people homeless and caused the early closure of some schools. The fire department is still trying to find out what caused the fire. TVJ's Kirk Wright reports.
From reports, the fire seemed to have started at a premises on Martin Street in Spanish Town about 10 Monday morning. Several buildings were engulfed in flames. Councillor for the Ensom City Division in St. Catherine, George Moody, was on the scene.
Investigation is currently going on, but I learned that it's a large complex that we have dwelling and commercial complexes.
A resident says it didn't take long before the fire got out of control.
When we come on the scene and see it, the fire just start come out of a roof, just barely come out from under a roof. And them try to fight it, but it's just bigger than them.
Visibility and oxygen levels dropped quickly, forcing the abrupt dismissal of a nearby basic and preparatory school. A teacher at the St. Catherine Basic School, Burlett Green, said some of her students were affected.
The smoke is very heavy, and the children, their nose are burning, eyes running, and especially those who have asthma.
The fire burned power lines and affected post-mortems in session at the Archer Funeral Home.
It put a big dent in post-mortem just for the 1 day setback, because what you find out now, the bodies that are supposed to come tomorrow from another funeral home, they might have to set back to facilitate again for tomorrow. So it put that 1 day setback. It will create somewhat a backlog.
Cable and internet services were also affected, but crews have already started repairs. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
There are more calls for the government to control corruption and crime in order to attract more investors in the BPO sector. Experts stress that this is necessary if the sector is to thrive. TVJ's Kalisha Williams reports.
The BPO sector is booming. Thousands of Jamaicans working as customer care agents in call centers across the island.
We've more than doubled the sector, gone from 12,500 people to over 26,000 people in the sector.
BPO jobs have helped to reduce unemployment, especially among young people who cannot land a job elsewhere. The sector is big business, but still has a far way to go.
There's more people out there now that are looking at Jamaica as a destination, because they not only see us as sun, sea and sand, but they see us as business and a business process outsourcing destination, as well as more work coming from the Philippines because people are tired of traveling so long.
However, if the BPO sector is to continue thriving, BPO analyst Peter Ryan says crime and corruption must be controlled.
Transparency International is a great website. It's a great organization, and every year they do the corruption perceptions rankings, which effectively ranks one country against the next in terms of the level of corruption that it's perceived to have. And unfortunately, Jamaica the last few years has gone downhill relative to the rest of the world.
Another issue is natural disasters.
We understand that Jamaica is in a location that is vulnerable to certain weather issues, but again, I think that focusing on elements such as redundancy and the high quality of construction and the ability to manage through disasters has to be brought to the forefront when looking to sell the country as a BPO location.
He maintains that those issues should be brought before potential BPO investors with a commitment that the government is working to resolve them. The issues were raised at an ITEL BPO seminar in St. James last week. Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
The